Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Think Different webinar. My name is Lauren Hotchkiss, and I'm from Diversified Rehab, and I wanted to introduce Derek Sienko, who will be conducting this webinar. This webinar goes until 10:30. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, feel free to type them in the chat, and we'll address them in the 15 minutes at the end. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy the webinar.
So my name is Derek Sienko. I'm the President and the CEO of Diversified Rehabilitation Group. Today's presentation is primarily will be focusing on return to work and different ways of doing return to work. I have over 18 years experience in the return to work field and disability management field. My experience is primarily in public and private sector. I have been also an injured worker, which gives me a perspective to better understand both employees and employers' side when it comes to return to work. Diversified Rehabilitation Group has been established in 2000, and our main focus is on return to work services, either supporting employers or injured workers in their journey to return to work. At the end of the presentation, about 15 minutes closer to the presentation, to the end of the presentation, we'll allow for some questions, but feel free to type them as we carry on with the presentation, and then we'll address them closer to the end of the presentation. Diversified Rehabilitation Group is also recipients of the Business Excellence Award, and in 2017 we received a Psychologically Healthy Workplace Award as well. Our office is located, head office is located in Kelowna, British Columbia, and other offices that we have in BC are Burnaby, Richmond, and Vancouver. We also serve the clients across Canada. One of the things that currently employees are facing when it comes to return to work, based on our analysis, it's employees struggle with how to handle absence. Many employers lack support when it comes to return to work. All the services, benefits plan that you have in place, even though you have them, many employers still struggle with the journey of return to work and assisting individuals effectively return to work in a safe and productive manner. We are still, the current system that we have from the return to work perspective follows sit and wait approach. It's a basically medical driven model. When an employee goes to work, first thing that happens, employee goes to the doctor, and then employees are waiting what's going to happen next. And frequently, as you can probably confirm, you are either getting a medical note that it's uncertain what's the next step is with respect to return to work planning. Also, the employers struggle with the legal obligation with respect to duty to accommodate, Workplace Health and Safety Insurance Act, and Human Rights Act. All of those predicaments are very alive to employers and frequently put employers in a mode of being more reactive and proactive with respect to return to work. So, and we all know that the longer employees off work, then harder it is to bring this employee back to work. So statistically, if we have employee we bring employee within 6 months, chances for us to have this employee back to work are very high. The longer we wait, if you go look at the mark of 12 months, then employees are, chances for those employees to come back to work are significantly reduced. This translates to high cost when it comes for employers to managing return to work and dealing with absence. In 2001, that cost economy employers have a 7.1 of their payroll, and it cost Canadian economy directly related absence, return to work disabilities over $16 billion. Today's numbers are in the first column would be close to 9, and when it comes to the general cost to Canadian economy, it's over $20 billion. So it's a definitely concern that it keeps growing, and yet we are not being able to address this effectively in order to have this under control. So, and comparing to return to work 10 years ago and comparing and looking at return to work today, it's not simple anymore. And there are a number of reasons for that. One is the confidentiality, legal obligations, mental health conditions that employers are bringing forward, aging labor force, labor shortage, and the changing values of new employees who are entering the labor force. All of those are very serious and life predicaments for employers that employers are currently facing and are asked to manage. I'm not sure if you ever felt like this, but I definitely did. So many clients that we work with, what do I do next? So when we look at what to do next from the perspective of return to work, in about 2010, Diversified Rehabilitation Group decided to invest a lot of energy and resources in coming up with a system and model that will help the employers, regardless of their size and of their industry, to have return to work structure in a way that will help them to manage disability claims, whether they are related to WCB or non-occupational injuries, that will provide them with sustainable processes and systems that will help them to effectively, with a client-focused approach, to bring employees to work, and at the same time be in control when it comes to return to work. So we strongly believe that in order to make that happen, we look at three components: the foundation, people, and approach. In order to be effective in any components of your return to work planning, you need to have a strong foundation. Currently, we have a number of different approaches to return to work, and from our experience when we are working with employers, this is never clearly defined for employers or established that employers can use the foundation in their journey of return to work and say, okay, what we are doing is for this reason, this is how is that working, and the principle behind this as such. You also need to have the right people. And I'm not referring to people from the employee's perspective, but I'm also referring from the external team players, treatment providers that are providing services to your employees in order to bring them back, or return to work professionals. And then you need to have the right approach that will help you and guide you in order to determine if you are walking this journey effectively. So in 2012, Diversified Rehabilitation Group developed a framework, a model that is called Client-Focused Return to Work Model. A Client-Focused Return to Work model has 4 layers and 4 phases. You go through the journey of 4 layers, you will see that the center of the circle is the workers, the layer 1. So you need to understand the worker's condition, where the worker is at. Then the second layer is the environment. You need to understand what the workplace is all about, what the workplace is able to offer, and also you need to look at the external environment of the worker, meaning what is really happening in the employee's work outside the work. Because we all know, using an example that probably many of you heard so many times, if the worker doesn't know how to lift properly, and goes home and starts lifting in a way that they shouldn't be lifting heavy objects, the chances for them to injure themselves and then not being at work goes up significantly. In the third layer, you have immediate return to work team. You have to have the right people that will assist you and bring this employee back to work and help you to manage the return to work. And the last layer speaks directly to accountability, quality, and safety. In order to be effective in delivering those programs, you need to have people who are accountable to the process, that the quality of the services are delivered, and that in a way that it will show you that the employees are getting better, and that you as an employer have everything that you need to make sure that you can test this through the journey of return to work in an effective and accountable manner. When it comes to 4 phases of the return to work, client-focused return to work model, those phases are assessment phase, planning phase, implementation phase, and evaluation phase. As we move through the journey of the return to work, starting from the worker, when the injury happens or illness, we need to understand where the worker is at. So that would be in our assessment phase. At the same time, we need to understand what is the employer able to accommodate from the perspective of return to work. And the best person who can do that from the job perspective is that direct manager or supervisor that works with the employee, and they can comment what accommodation is available, how they can make that happen. And at the same time, worker is the person who can comment and reflect on their own job responsibilities and let you know what they are able to do from the perspective of coming back to work. Now, when you already know where the employee and the worker and the employer is at from the return to work perspective, then you need to have the right team that will help you to make that happen. And the team, that immediate return to work team, I will disclose that information very shortly in my next slide. That shifts, moves away from the medically driven model to the employee and the direct manager driven model. And in a planning phase, of course, we follow the same formula. When it comes to, we go through each layer to make sure that any aspects of planning that we have to take into account in preparation for the return to work is addressed, including worker treatment, including workers' ability to participate in return to work planning, employers' ability to accommodate, and as well as having the right team and treatment in place while the worker is recovering. And as we move through the next layer, which is accountability, we want to make sure that whatever we do, we have people that are accountable to this process, that the quality is there and safety is in place as well. Now, once the planning is done, then we move to the implementation phase, and we follow through the same process in terms of layers and making sure that every checkpoint that needs to be in place is addressed, so we can start implementing the return to work based on the employees and employers' needs. Once that's completed, then of course we move to the evaluation form phase, making sure that whatever we did right, and if there's a need for adjustment, this is the time when we'll do that. Now, when you look at those 4 phases, assessment, planning, implementation, and evaluation, they are an active organism. So what that means is, as you're moving through the journey of return to work, you are constantly cross-referencing and checking if everything is working, and if you have everything that needs to take place from the perspective of accommodation and bringing your employees back to work. So this not only creates an opportunity for employee to be engaged in the return to work process, but also creates an opportunity for the employee to come up with their own plan for the journey, and that employee and their direct and that employee becomes your link between the medical and the work environment, which expedite return to work planning in a more effective manner. Now, in order to make that happen, and in order to ensure that this is done effectively, and in order to protect the workers' confidentiality with respect to the medical information, you need to have the right team in place. So in our model, return to work, client-focused return to work model, the immediate team shifts the responsibility, as we are currently having medical professionals, to the employee, direct manager, and the return to work coordinator. A return to work coordinator, certain companies will have different job title for that, but the return to work coordinator is a very qualified individual who understands the journey of return to work, understands the employees and employers' ability to accommodate, and the return to work coordinator is not only the one who is actioning all those components that needs to take place during the journey of return to work, but also facilitates any speed bumps and addressing any components of return to work between the employee, direct manager, and then support team, which are medical care providers and human resources professionals. So that takes us from a reactive approach currently that we have in place. For example, when the employee goes off work, in the current system, what happens, medical information, you're waiting for the medical information, and then limitations and abilities are being put forward, and you're waiting for that medical professionals to tell you when would that happen. And frequently what you're seeing is, after that first medical note, unable to return to work, for example, for a period of 6 weeks, reassessing into more than, you probably agree with me that that information is not really effective for return to work planning. Where under the client focused return to work model, the employee and direct manager and return to work coordinator, from the point of injury, this is the time when they speak what this employee is capable of doing at giving their job duties or transitional duties available to the employee. And with that information, they go to the doctor, and the doctor makes a decision from the perspective of treatment, not decision from the perspective whether this work is suitable or not, because we already know that the duties of that job most likely would be suitable to employees. So moving forward and putting that foundation for employers, it doesn't matter of the size of the employer, we understand that in order for this to take place, you need to have an approach that is integrated, flexible, personalized, practical, and cost-effective. And that's the only way that you would be able to manage those return to work strategies for your organization in a very effective manner, whether they are related to WCB claims or long or short-term disability claims. Now, what this approach also offers is that the employers are not limited to the options from the perspective of return to work, and they are not paying for services that are unnecessary for them to have. And what I'm referring to, frequently employers will purchase short-term disability plans or long-term disability plans with a very little intervention that focuses on the return to work. And they pay for those services way in advance, not really receiving the value that they were hoping to receive from the perspective of support for their employees and themselves in the journey of return to work. So how do we, because we know that each employer has their own culture, each employer have their own needs that they need to address from the company perspective. So the first thing that we suggest for employers and we offer to employers is to do a gap analysis. Doesn't matter where you are as an employer, gap analysis tells you and gives you an opportunity to understand what services you have in place, what you need to modify, what you need to introduce, and to what level you would like to have this customized in order to meet your desired state. And the gap analysis is nothing more than an opportunity for you to understand what you need to have in place that will help you for planning and implementation of those services that your company is in a need, and that will structure you from the return to work perspective more on the proactive side than the reactive one. So when we went to the market with that client-focused return to work model that was tested with about 15,000 clients and cross-reference with professionals from probably every discipline that's involved in the return to work planning, including doctors, family care, different care providers, occupational therapists, return to work coordinators, human resources professionals, accountants, and as well as lawyers from the perspective of whether it's working or not, whether this is sustainable for employers. So what we realized that employers really follow in three different categories. And those categories, based on the gap analysis, offers them different options that employers can pick in order to address their return to work needs based on the client-focused return to work model. We structure as a company, we structure this in 3 levels: gold, silver, and bronze, just to help the employers to understand the components of return to work and what is included there. And we review this with employers based on their needs and introduce those strategies and implement systems in a way that it's suitable for that specific employer versus just giving them a very general package that it's not addressing their needs. Now, from the perspective of is it working or not, what is the statistical data tells us from the when we are utilizing that model. Here's an example of an employer. The size of the employer is about close to 900 employees. And in 2012, when that employee came on board, the days lost at work that they had was over 3,000. In the first year of implementing and working, going through strategies of that model, those days dropped to about 1,400, and they continue to be almost on the same level. And actually, the statistical data covers only till for 2014, but the data from 2016 confirms that the employee stays around the same mark. So the cost savings for that employer, the cost to initially it cost them over $600,000. With the implementation of the strategies being more reactive and being in control, drop that price for the employers in terms of managing to the number that it's indicated on the bottom of the screen on the right side. Well, to summarize this, why it's beneficial to follow the client-focused return to work model. One, it standardizes you for all the things that you need to meet, whether it's work safe, STD, long-term employment insurance. Gives you a strong foundation, gives you tools that you can manage your return to work in a more proactive manner, changes the shift from medical model to more client-focused model, where the employee and direct manager are involved in the journey of return to work. Keeps your employees at work, definitely reduce your premiums, and shows the employees and supports them in the recovery. Reduce the time wasted on the claims with standardized processes, policies, and procedures. We are now open to questions, so if you have any questions, feel free to put those questions forward and we'll be able to address them. We have a question: do you train employers on the model? Do you provide support? Yes, so if employers decide to move forward with the model, we definitely provide an opportunity to train employers on the journey of the model and help them to put the processes in place. Next question is, do I have to have a designated return to work coordinator to manage that? Well, preferably yes, because you would be dealing with a lot of medical information, and in order to keep this confidential and beneficial to all stakeholders involved in return to work planning, yes, this individual should be an individual who is definitely not a benefits person who is running this as their addition to their job duties, but the person who is qualified to manage that. The next question is, what is the cost for implementation? Well, the cost really varies from where from your size of your organization and needs of your organization. So since we don't have any more questions, I will be asking Lauren to send you a copy of this presentation. Thank you very much for your time. And if you would like to join us for the next presentation, keep checking our website or we'll send you an invitation. Thank you. Have a great weekend. Thanks. Bye.